Hi everyone, this is Sam, and we are beginning the Death of Virgil today. Um, these sessions are recorded for anyone who can't make them in person. I was just saying, and I just want to repeat it for those who can't be here right now, that I am really I'm really blown away and moved that so many people have signed up to read this book and to talk about it together. It's long been one of my favorite books, and I don't think it's read very widely. I'll say at least in the United States. Actually, this year happens to be the 80th anniversary of the publication of The Death of Virgil, and not a single article has been published on it, if that gives you any sense of the kind of reception that it's had in the West, unlike Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain, which has received attention in every major literary review and publication over the course of the past year for the two big anniversary years. The two books do have quite a bit in common. It is very much a modernist novel, and we could use Thomas Mann's term Zeitroman, or time novel, to also think about part of what Hermann Brock is doing in this book. This is an incredibly, I think, difficult work for some people who pick it up, because it looks like a novel, but it's not. It is, in a way, an epic poem. And it's really better to think about it, let me let Marilyn in, as a kind of symphony that occurs in five movements, which is the structural form that Brock had in mind when he was writing it. So there are three, we could say, interruptions or pauses in the unfolding of the story. And the entire story takes place over the course of 18 hours. So Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain is, of course, 7 years. Joyce's Ulysses is a day. And here we have the final 18 hours of the poet Virgil's life. I have this English translation. I have the German open in front of me as well, in case we want to compare the texts. This book is overdue for a retranslation, in case there are any editors, publishers here today who are looking to commission something interesting. Not me, I don't want to do it. But somebody is a far better translator than myself. And so I'll pull the text up on the screen whenever we look at a passage together. And I think that this text really avails itself of a deep textual reading. So Hermann Broch was an Austrian poet who eventually emigrated to the United States. And I know there are a lot of Hannah Arendt fans and readers here. Broch and Arendt were very good friends. And this work for Arendt was very influential in her thinking about time and what it meant to live in what she calls the gap space, the no longer and not yet, and thinking about that break in tradition that was caused by the phenomenal appearance of totalitarianism in the middle of the 20th century. So there are different, I'll say, stories of how Brock wrote this text. Brock's own accounts are not always faithful to the way in which he himself wrote it, which is not uncommon for an author to retrospectively mythologize their own writing process. So I'll share a couple of secondary pieces with you so that you can take a look at some of what Brock himself said about the text. But when he delivered, when he was invited to speak on Viennese radio in 1935 to introduce their Pentecost program, he was invited to read poems, and instead he gave a lecture on the end of culture and literature. So one of the questions that's really at the heart of this book, which I posted a short video about last week, is what is the political responsibility of the artist or the poet during moments of political crisis? And this takes us back to, I think, a question that came up when we were reading even The Magic Mountain together, which is, is literature in some ways better suited to address the political crises of the day than kind of bald political text or speeches? What is it that poetry or literature might do to push a bit against W.H. Auden, who says the poetry does nothing? So what is that? So Brock read a short story on the radio called Die Heimkehr des Virgil, the homecoming of Virgil, the return of Virgil, and he said that this became the it's depending on the edition you have. This edition's about 500 pages, 500-page work, which was published in German in 1945. Brock had started sketching ideas for the book before he himself was interned by the Nazis. And he worked on the book and edited the book while he was held prisoner, and reworked it during that time in the spring of 1938. So he begins working on it really around 1933, between 1933 and 35, and then works on it through those years and is editing it in 1938. He escapes to England, and then finally to the United States, where he continued revising the book between 1939 and 1945. And in his journals and his correspondence, he talks about the long process of editing this book, where even a few years away from publication, he says things like it needs 5 or 10 more years.
Wow.
Yeah. And his own consciousness is one of the themes of the book. What is it to be awake and alive to the world? And what it changes and shifts throughout the course of the book. So when he applied for a Guggenheim Fellowship to finish writing it in 1939, he described the book, I'm going to read you a short paragraph. He described the book as Virgil, standing on the threshold between two ages, exemplified the ethic poet par excellence. He summed up antiquity as he anticipated Christianity. As age overtook him, he was more and more overwhelmed by the antithesis of creative form and pure cognition, until near the end of his days, he had determined to destroy the Aeneid. Just before his death, Augustus persuaded him to desist from this decision. So Brock did receive the Guggenheim, and he used the money for it to help people escape the Nazis, and also continued finishing the book. To me, the one term that really comes to mind, and there are many, but the one central term that really comes to mind whenever I think about this book is